Do you let people borrow your new Toyota Tacoma, or any truck for that matter? I'm going to tell you a few stories as to why I don't do that. These things really happened. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to RobMotive. So do you ever let anybody borrow your Tacoma? First of all, let me say I do not. And I'm going to tell you why, a few things that have actually happened here in just a second. But real quick, there's something I've noticed a little bit off about my new Tacoma I wanted to get your opinion on. I've noticed that when I first get in the truck and go for a ride, and the first time I hit the brakes, there's like it's almost like a clunk. You can feel it in the pedal. It's like two things kind of missing each other or something, or grabbing. And then there's like a sound. It's like a clunk, clunk. At best I can describe it, really. It's just kind of odd, and I don't know if it's just normal for the system. Maybe it's calibrating every time you get in. The brakes do some kind of self-diagnosis or something. I don't know. It's just kind of weird, but I wonder if anybody else has noticed that. Another thing is that when I go over, and this again is when you first take off in the truck, but if I go over some kind of a bump or maybe a raised part of the pavement, like when you go over a threshold and one side is higher than the other, I feel that same kind of clunk in the front. It's kind of weird. It's like it's coming from the suspension or the tires. I'm not sure what it is. It kind of reminds me of when I had a lift done on one of my previous trucks, and they forgot to tighten down the brake calipers. For some reason they removed, or it was one, they removed the brake caliper on the passenger side and did not tighten it down. That, or it came that way from the factory, which is possible, but I never noticed it until after I had a lift done. Anyway, if you have those experiences, please leave a comment down below and let me know. So let's get into why I never let anybody borrow my truck, my Tacoma. Well, first of all, I'm way too picky to do that. You know, the best way to ruin a friendship or start a family feud is to let somebody borrow your truck and then have something happen, right? Particularly if they are not willing to pay for whatever damage was done or whatever was caused. And it could be anything as minor as a simple scratch, right? I mean, for me, I love the truck the way it is, and I'm of the belief that if you were to loan something out to somebody, it should be returned the same or better than when you gave it to them, right? I mean, it's just common courtesy. So a few things that I have firsthand knowledge of happening. We're going to start with a Ford Ranger. Now, this was an older Ford Ranger, and somebody wanted to borrow it to move. This was not my truck. Somebody wanted to borrow it to move, so it was loaned out. Now, when the truck came back, it had a couple of problems. The tailgate no longer caught. In other words, if you opened the tailgate, it would just slam down on the bumper. And you could imagine if that happened, you could have a problem with some sort of a dent or something on the other side of the tailgate, right? The outside. And that's exactly what happened. It was allowed to slam down, and then it had a nice dent on, I think it was on one side actually, not across the whole tailgate. But it was a problem, and the people that did it never acknowledged that anything happened or that they broke the tailgate. I mean, it would have been obvious. And my guess is they were probably standing on it. You know, they only support so much weight, right? And they were probably standing on it and broke the hinge or the mechanism that was in the Ranger. It was an older Ranger. Or they sat something on the edge and the weight of that was too much for the tailgate. Or they were carrying something that added weight to themselves, stepped up on the edge of the tailgate, and it gave way. In any of those circumstances, you would have known that you broke the tailgate, right? I mean, it would have given way, it would have startled you for sure, particularly if you were holding on to something and thought you were going to fall. Never mentioned it, never said a word about it. Now, another instance, and this has happened a few times with people I know, because you see, people like to complain after the fact when they never should have loaned the truck out to begin with, right? And that is people bringing it back without a full gas tank. And frankly, I don't care if you got the truck and it was half full or maybe even almost empty. When you borrow somebody's truck, particularly if you're not paying them to use it, you should return the truck full. Just common courtesy, right? If for no other reason than a thank you for being able to borrow their truck. It drives me nuts, even though it never happened to me, because again, I don't loan my trucks out. But it even drives me nuts when I hear these things, that people have the gall to borrow your vehicle for free and either damage it or return it without a full fuel tank. Another thing is junk left inside. You know, if you're moving stuff, it's typically in the summer, right? It's hot outside, so people are guzzling down the drinks, water, and whatever, you know. Getting back in the truck and finding empty containers, empty water bottles, empty pop cans, maybe an empty bag of chips, maybe even crumbs for chips if they're messy, all over the inside of the truck. And God forbid somebody were to move when it was raining outside. I've heard of people getting their trucks back and having mud and things inside the truck. It should return at least as clean or cleaner than it was when you loaned it to them, right? Now, this last example has nothing to do with moving, and it actually was an SUV. It wasn't really a truck. It was a Chevy Blazer. This thing was brand new. It was a nice bright red. It looked awesome. Brand new on the inside. For some reason, a friend of mine worked for somebody, and his boss let this guy, who was a kid like me at the time, borrow his Chevy Blazer. So of course he wanted to show it off, right? It was nice. He comes over and he picks up me and another guy, and we're going out joyriding, right? Well, first of all, he's running that thing full bore, because that's how he was. You know, we had to try to get it to go as fast as it would go. And he did. Put a lot of wear on the engine that day. And keep in mind, this thing was new. I think it had less than 500 miles on it. I still don't know why the guy ever let him have it, but whatever. And then it was a 4x4. There were some old railroad tracks. The tracks had been removed, but the path was still running through a woods, right? All overgrown and stuff, tree branches protruding into the path, across the path. So he decides that we need to get down this path, which of course we all agreed to. It would be fun, right? So we hit this old railroad track lane or path, I guess, and we must have been going 60, 70 miles an hour down it. It was so stupid. We're flying. The thing's bouncing, jumping all over the place, and branches are sliding down the side and over the hood of this truck as we're going along. Fortunately for him, there weren't any branches that were so thick that they actually busted a headlight or the grill or anything, as far as I know. But it did come away with scratches down the side and on the hood. We could see them. And I remember him saying that he hoped his boss didn't see it because he had no idea what he would do, right? These are reasons why I don't loan my Tacomas out for any reason. Not to mention I'm just way too picky to do that. Leave a comment, let me know. Do you loan your trucks out, your Tacomas out, so other people can move or maybe haul a TV home from, I don't know, Best Buy or somewhere? I'd just be curious to know. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.